TSUKIHINA Dream Realm Haikyuu. Part 2. I reached the dream realm early as promised. I wanted to hear what made him finally leave the dream realm and get into my world. But there was something different as I walked to the middle of the vast meadow. The mood was not as welcoming as it used to be. It somehow seemed unusual. It somehow seemed sad. The sky was bizarrely dark tonight too. The stars and moon were covered by clouds and were nowhere to be seen. The lamps on the trees were not as light as they used to be. Most of the butterflies were already settled on their flowers. My gaze was fixed on the heavens, trying to catch a glimpse of him with those beautiful black angel-like wings. Those powerful wings that have brought me high above the clouds once. I had to convince Shoyo to take me flying once despite him not liking the idea at all. Up until now, there was no sign of him from above. I could only hear the rustling of leaves as the wind blew across the meadow. Just before I heard that familiar voice. K. His voice seemed to be from somewhere near. Somewhere on the ground. My eyes left the sky and wandered around the vastness of the meadow. Shoyo. Show yourself. What happened here? Slowly, Shoyo appeared from behind a tree. Just like the meadow, there was something noticeable with how Shoyo looked. His eyes were not as inviting as they usually are. You're early. He held his tattooed hand up and waited there for mine. Not wanting him to wait a second longer, I dashed toward him and took his hand. He sat down on the grass beside our favorite tree and pulled me lightly to sit beside him. Where are your wings, Shoyo? He stared blankly across the meadow. I could sense loneliness as I stared at him. I don't have them anymore, K. My brows furrowed, trying to analyze things. What do you mean? Are they wounded that you can't use them? Are you not allowed to use them because you went to my world? Don't get me all worried here, Shoyo. I know how much you love your wings. His head slowly rested on my shoulder. I don't have them anymore, K. It was Morpheus' condition. That name made me flinch. It's like I've always hated the name, but I couldn't remember why. Why don't you have your wings? Who's Morpheus? Shoyo, please tell me. My left hand went behind his back and rested on his waist, while my right hand took hold of his tattooed hand. Do you want me to start with my story? Or do you want me to tell yours first? My head was burning with questions as my heart started beating with intense haste. Please, Shoyo, whatever it is, just tell me. Tell me everything there is to know. About you and about me. His other hand joined our already intertwined hands. I'll tell you mine first. I nodded as I tried to calm myself down. This Morpheus, I don't like his name one bit. Remember I asked you if you wanted me in your world. I hummed. When you left for your world, Morpheus came. Who's this Morpheus? He's the god of the dream realm. What did he want with you? My hand tightened my hold on his. Shoyo rubbed his hand on mine, calming me back down. Morpheus visits parts of his world randomly. It was good that he came though. I was able to ask him about my intention to go to the human world. He was hesitant at first, but decided to give in. However, conditions were set. Conditions. After much discussion, he allowed me to go to the human world. His initial condition was that my memory shall be wiped out. His hand on top of our intertwined hands transferred to my right cheek. It was the same feeling of coldness throughout my body, and the same warmth as it got to my heart. I closed my eyes, deepening the warmth in my heart. Please don't ever forget me, Shoyo. His touch moved further to the lobe of my ear. I would never, K. So I offered my wings. And my magic. My eyes instantly flew open. He sacrificed his wings and magic for me. He took your wings, your magic, in exchange for your memory. I obliged with no hesitation. K. You already lost yours, I can't lose mine too. I lost mine. I felt Shoyo release from our hug. He turned his entire body to face me and took both my hands. You still don't remember? I stared at his beautiful face, still confused with all the details Shoyo has been talking about. Remember what? My story's done. I'm about to tell yours now. Are you ready? Tell me. His eyes lowered to his tattooed hand. I've always noticed you liked my moon. Did Shoyo get distracted? Or does his tattoo have anything to do with me? He lifted his face and looked at me with that beautiful smile. I've always liked yours too. Mine. I don't have one. Then that smirk. Do you have your phone with you? I reached for my pocket, took my phone and was about to hand it to him. Teach me how to take a photo. I tutored Shoyo on how to use the phone camera. He asked me to turn around. After a few seconds, he asked me to turn back around to face him. He gave me back my phone and gestured for me to look at the screen. There it was, the photo he took of me facing away from him. I lifted my head to look at him, and his smirk welcomed me. I looked back at the photo. My nape. There was this noticeable black figure on my nape. I zoomed in and there it was. A figure of a sun with wavy rays. You're a dream realm fairy too, Kay. You've always been my dream realm partner. We've always shared this meadow. I don't understand. If I was with you since the beginning, why don't I remember? Remember that time you insisted that we fly? I hesitated. Does that have something to do with my memory? We used to fly above the meadow playfully, Kay. We would race. There was this once where we raced to the moon. Did we get into trouble? Something of that kind, yes. When we got there, of course I won. You found this portal, it was ultimately shiny and was very inviting. I dared you to check on it and you did. You held my hand as you went through the portal. You told me not to go through. I just held your hand so you knew how to get back. Did I leave you here? No, you would never do that on purpose. You returned through the portal. Initially, there was no problem. Not until Morpheus came. The same Morpheus who took your wings and magic. Shoyo nodded. He came that night. He was furious, knowing what we did. He wanted to punish us both but you took all the blame. He banished you to the human world. You were not able to come back for a long time. But I waited. When you finally returned, I was devastated that you had no memory of our past. I left him all alone. I can't imagine the sadness of waiting that much for someone you long for. If Shoyo left me, I would go insane. I'm sorry Shoyo. I would never let anything come between us ever again. I hugged him. This explains how I've always felt for Shoyo. Thank you for not giving up on me. I felt Shoyo tense up. He's here. Just then, I saw a dark figure land in the middle of the meadow. His dark-colored mid-length hair was light enough to be blown by the wind. I could not make out his face due to the limited light around the meadow tonight. His wings were bigger than what Shoyo had. It was black like Shoyo's but did not glisten. He must be that Morpheus. My body started to heat up with anger. I don't care if he was a god. Shoyo immediately stood and faced him. In a blink of an eye, that Morpheus was in front of Shoyo. I heard him say, "You should not have messed with his memory. You shall be banished from the dream realm," just as he was. Everything seemed too fast for plain sight. Morpheus grabbed Shoyo by the wrist and started flying upwards. I tried to stop them by holding onto Shoyo's other hand, but failed. Shoyo glanced at me as Morpheus took him up towards the sky. Remember me, Kay, don't forget. My eyes followed as that Morpheus took Shoyo higher. My heart was full of anger. My eyes wanted to tear up but my mind won't allow. I knelt on the ground in absolute dismay. I looked down and clenched my fists on the ground. I felt my entire body heat up again. When I looked up to where Shoyo had been taken by that Morpheus, it happened. I felt something grew out of my back. There was pain but I felt powerful. I looked back and saw something white from behind. Then I realized, I have wings. They were huge and cottony white with a hint of scattered silver glitters. Without any idea on how to use them, my eyes went back to Shoyo. They were way too high up now. Without hesitation, I jumped from the ground giving enough force for my wings to start flying. In a matter of seconds, I was beside Shoyo in the air. Shoyo's face of amazement was too obvious. I hugged him midair and pulled him in, loosening Morpheus' grip. We were so high up that I motioned for Shoyo to tighten his hug on me. I don't want to drop him to the ground. Where is he taking you? The moon portal. I believe he's going to banish me as well. Because I told you about your past. No one shall disobey nor dishonor my orders. I faced the god of dreams. Even if he told me things, I still do not remember anything. I would not have understood if you have not come. Why are you back here? How did you find yourself back? We stopped midair. Morpheus let go of Shoyo's hand. I hugged Shoyo tighter. I really don't remember how it all started. I just felt I belong here. With Shoyo, Morpheus snorted, Eros, Eros. I've always hated Eros. God of love. We both looked at each other's eyes. Ah, Eros. He looked really pissed. Whoever this Eros is, I should probably thank him. Head back to the meadow. I shall let this pass. Only because I have no power over Eros. Everything shall be as it is before you were banished. The wings, the magic, the memory. He looked at me intensely. His eyes were as dark as his hair. You shall not disobey orders henceforth. His eyes transferred to Shoyo's. Both of you. My hand went to the back of Shoyo's head and pulled it closer to mine, making sure his eyes don't meet with Morpheus. I looked strongly at Morpheus, but managed a nod. Should you wish to go back to the human world, I'll let you decide. Take the moon portal as you wish. Just make sure that this part of my world is well taken care of. Go now before I change my mind. Not wasting any time, I headed for the meadows, leaving Morpheus stunned. As we landed, I released Shoyo from our hug. Seeing the tears were visible on his cheeks, I wiped them off. Please don't cry, Shoyo. I don't want to lose you again. I pulled him into another hug as I kissed the top of his head. I won't let that happen again. You hear me? I felt him nod, but did not let go of the hug. I closed my eyes when I felt my head hurt from the sudden influx of memories. When I opened them, I just smiled. The meadow was lit up. The moon and stars were now visible up in the sky. The trees and flowers were blooming. The lamps were brightly lit. The butterflies were flying across the meadow, leaving sparkles as they flew. I released the hug from Shoyo. I cupped his chin to make him face me. He still had those tears on his cheeks, but his soulful eyes were back. His beauty was radiating like the sun. As I stared at his beautiful face, his majestic black wings came into life, contrasting my white wings. My smile widened. I remember everything now, Shoyo. He wiped away his tears before he lifted his tattooed hand to my cheek, then smirked. Did you miss me? I leaned closer, my cheek touching his. I most definitely did, love. I whispered before I pecked his lips. Race to the moon. I smirked and started flying towards the moon. Not fair. I laughed as I glanced to him before he took off following me. I slowed down to wait for him and grabbed his hands when he got to me. We stayed there midair, our eyes fixed on each other. I love you, Shoyo. I love you, K.